Some of you cannot come, some of you are in Rome already. So I'm gonna start this for a few minutes. I'm going to work on what we started last week, and then I'm going to switch to one of the clips. Maybe this one is so beautiful, right? Keep working on Fortuna, right? This luck, lady luck. Let's say, let's work on this half an hour just to warm up a little bit. All right, and I was using big pastel, right? Big pastel. Give it another minute, right? Wait for another minute. I don't want to start. You guys arrive later, and then we have to start again. All right, so. Okay, let's see. Bit pastel oil based. Oil base, okay. All right, let's get started. Nobody's there yet. Let's get started. And you can watch the video. And, This also has a little bit of white, so we have some red, sanguine red. We got some sepia or black. It's probably black. It doesn't say, but it's black, right? This is black. And then we need white for some highlights. All right, and check if somebody is trying to get in. All right, so let's get started. Where's this? See that this shadow now will be blocking in 1, 2, 3. They kind of start as we intensify the value with lines, right? This line following the forms. We increase the sense of volume. Armpit. I will enlarge it a little bit more so you can see the mark making. Pushing the hair back, darkening it, moving the nose a little bit by darkening the background. And eventually here I will need to block in to add some black. Extending the toner scale here. Right. Right. See, same thing we did for the arm, right? Thinking of the overlapping of the forms, the changes of the angle here, right here. But this is a little bit darker because it changes angle, goes under like that. This gets so light, dark, light, but also overlapping this, overlapping that, this overlapping that, and so on. The overlapping here, see that overlapping here. So this overlapping the rib cage, overlapping the hips. Now we do the same thing with this leg here. We see there is overlapping here, right? This overlapping that, so you know, see that overlapping, overlapping, overlapping here, right? Even if it's minimal, there's a clear priority of, you know, the planes here. Who's on front, who's in the back. Too much. And we can also, at this point, we can also start using a little bit of black. We already started using the black, but let's use it a little bit more. See these lines here, right? That we have to darken that. Okay. All right, so we go back and forth here between red and black. Try to frame the whole thing. I keep the value going here all around just to have a control somehow on the whole. I keep jumping back and forth, but trying to finish, trying to block it first general layer of value here before I focus too much on a detail and push the value on an area. I want to have a, you know, the whole values here, the weakest value grow together. In the whole upper portion of this cloth or silk or ribbon. Okay, so now let's work on the dark part here, on the area that are where the black and the red are mixed here. Another 15 minutes, sorry, and then we switch to Clint. Oh, there's more hair in the back here. I missed them. Okay, I'll try now a little bit of white. I think there's some white in this area in here, here, here. Comes out, yeah, a little bit, right? This part in here has some areas that are, so a part of the value here is blocked in with a parallel the parallel lines to create an even value. And then some lines go across like this, following the form. getting there, right? So I would like to now switch to the Klimt. And now we go from a very deliberate, very careful and reasoned mark making to rendering to a freer approach. Regular paper will do it. No, this is a tone paper. So I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna use tone paper for this later on. Now we can start with this one. That is, even if it's on tone paper, it does not have white. We would use tone paper for this one here, right? To get the white visible. So let's start with this, just warm up. And then we're gonna use slightly tone paper for this one here, because you see it has some white here. This is also a black and white basically, right? And here where we have just black and white, and we need tone paper. So let's start with this warm up. It looks like it's graphite, so let's go with graphite pencil. Actually, I want it to be dark so you guys can see it. So maybe I should use a darker color than graphite. I could use this. It's not graphite, but it's what I used before. Let's see if it works. No. Let's see. All right, maybe this works. So this I'm using a oil-based pit pastel, hard. This comes in better gradation. This is extra hard. See if it's right, or if it's too hard. We change it back. I think that those lines are so thin and clean that I think we need a hard pencil. Don't use if you use graphite, don't use 2H or 3H. They are too hard and barely visible. You can use HB, but keep it sharp, because these lines are so thin and they don't have soft edges, right? Meaning it's a relatively hard pencil. So the difficult part of drawing a face like this is that it's sideways, and we are really not usually used to see a face sideways like that. Mostly we see the face is straight, so we have to kind of step back a second and don't think of this as a face for now, but think of this as an oval or a rectangular shape like this right here. And we start with thin lines, and we can see some thin lines, some thin searching lines if you look at your copy. And we block in the volume of the face like this. It's very, very weak. You just barely see it. That's sufficient, right? This is flat, right? See that? And this is like at an angle. So we're looking at this as a geometric shape. The face, the chin is flat, comes in. So maybe now this is too long, so I'm going to shorten it up a little bit here. And the hair is now this portion here. I'm looking at the space between here and here, right, more or less, or here, and let's say I would block the eyebrows here and here, checking out how big the negative space or the empty space of the forehead is here. Eyes here, look also the space between here and here is quite remarkable. The eyes are closed, so that's the eye here and here, right? And the nose is pretty much the same distance that we have from the eyebrow to the eyelid down here. See, that's similar, maybe a little bit shorter. So now here, that's the nose, and the mouth is now here. I'm looking at the space between the end of the nose and the upper lip here, and the lip is gonna be here, and the lower lip is here. Now I look at the chin. Maybe I need to add a little bit more space to the chin. Right, so we can now refine this line by making it slightly more sharp, darker, right, going over it. Now we can block in the eyebrows here, going down like this. So fairly arched, see that? Maybe even more than I did it, so slightly more arched here, here. Eyelid. Up here. Down, like that, right? Oh, this is even more arched than that, right? So you see a very, very faint shading here with just a few soft lines here and here. Lower lip. The parting of the hair. So very simple face, but it's created with just the right marks, with just the right lines. Not too many, right? Which makes it a very good exercise to increase your precision in drawing. So that the throat is at the level of here of the nose, right? But there's a curve that goes about here, right? I don't even know somebody can hold the head like that and not feel pain, but I guess some people do. See that here is at the level of the lip here. The other side of the neck here is the shoulder. This is at the level of the center of the forehead, and we have an angle coming down like this. I'm looking at this triangle, right? A bit lower. Now we have this long braid. Below the eye here. Out and down. Such a beautiful drawing, beautiful pose. And he blocks in the braiding with just a wiggle line, right? That very effective. This also has some marks that are a little bit chaotic to probably suggest the hair. They work. A little bit of the eyelid, sorry, eyelashes, right here. A few lines for the zygomatic, the cheekbones. Hi. So, good. It was a good warm-up, right? Just line drawing. Just the right line. Just the right lines. So let's work now on this shape print. I kind of don't like it. I do like this one here, and I do like this one here. So let's get to work now on tone paper. I have a piece of tone paper. Let's see. I'm gonna put a piece of white paper under here so don't mess up. Okay, so let's see. So for this we need black and white. I want to see if I can do this with this pit pastel. See if the white is visible sufficiently. But I might use this one here, the pit pastel black. You can use a pencil. I don't think this is charcoal. This is a pencil, and then we can use pit pastel white or white chalk in pencil, such as this one, right? Charcoal white, which is chalk, but they call it charcoal, or any other white pastel that you might have. So let's look at this girl now. We have this head, this block of the head. You see the searching lines here, right? a quite interesting searching line here. There's a lot of little searching line. But then when you get to the face, very few, right? Very few. You don't want to have the profile of this young girl created with a multitude of lines like this, right? So blocking this rectangular shape, faint marks, right? We don't need it to be too visible, just to establish the size and position and angle of the head. So now we have, let's block in, this should be just barely visible, which is what I want. I want this to be just very faint outline, right? And now we start blocking in other, the three main areas here of the head, which is the face, the hair, and this rolled up, curled up braid. So look at this angle and see if we have the same space here, right, for the face replicated here. And this is about halfway, maybe a little bit less, the height, and it comes forward into the cheek and goes all the way back like that, right? So now we could block in the throat, which if you look at this space here from the chin to here, it's about at this level, right? And then here is the back of the figure. This is the little shirt, and from here another line going down like this, right, creating this triangular space. See this triangular space, right? So we block in our scaffolding. So scaffolding, I might need to make this a little bit taller. I will see, make it a little taller here. But you see how these lines are really not a thin, precise line. They are kind of, they give him some, they're kind of somehow forgiving, right? All right, so so now when we block in the forehead, which protrudes, comes forward like this. Actually, before we do this detail, the forehead, let's mark in the eyes, the eyebrows here, right? And then block in the nose, which looks like halfway between here and here, right? And then the chin. So from here, I can block in this line here, very faint, this line in here. And you see there's another line back there, which I don't think it was the line he created to block in the figure. It's more like the line of the hair, but the line that I created for the block, it looks now like the line of the hair. So indirectly achieve the same result. Now the nose, upturn, the lip, upper lip here, down at an angle like this, very narrow. See that? It's not much past the wing of the nose here. And then we have the lower lip here, and we have the cheek. Like that. So eyebrow, eyes is about here, looking at the space between, so I'm looking at the space between the hair and the eyebrow, right? This one here, right? So the eyebrow would be here. The hair maybe come down a little bit more. It's because it's fairly narrow, see that? Then I have here the space between, I'm looking at the space between the eyebrow here and the beginning of the nose here. It looks okay. I'm looking now at the space between the eyebrow and the top of the eyelid. So a slight change of angle, see that from here to here, slight change of angle. And I want to look at the space between now the iris and the nose here, right? But the nose should be a little bit bigger here. There we go, rounder, right? My nose were too pointy, so I made it a little bit rounder. Lower eyelid. The nostril. Lovely sketches, right, to do quickly if the subject collaborates, because, you know, kids, whenever I try to paint or draw my kids, if they were asleep, okay, but otherwise, good luck with that, right? So probably the forehead protrude a little bit more. Now I can, now that I have this basic set of lines, right? What we can do, we can mark them a little bit harder and a little bit, make them a little bit darker. The forehead here protrudes a little bit more to a sharper point. So let's get that going here. Right. Moves in, goes out, right? Then we can block in all the lines of the top of the head here. This is the parting line between the hair here. This comes down. So my tone paper is slightly darker than the tone paper that Klimt used. That's fine. Upper lip. The lower lip is the same level as the upper lip. See that they are lined up vertically. Real tiny little oval. And then we have the cheek protruding a little bit more than I did it. Here. The chin. And then all these lines that create the background. These are the background value, but are all lines like this. Quite interesting, right? Almost hairy lines. This line radiating, right, from here to converging into this this coiled up braid, collab braid. So here is the a little bit chaotic, but that's fine. It will render the idea, right? Didn't want to get into the calling up here. So we can use the white. I'm gonna try with this white now first. See if it creates something visible. Yes, not bad, right? It shows. They didn't put any white on the face. Just here a little bit of a line with some white here too, right? So see, the white is really not applied carefully to show some tonal rendering, some height, some volumes here. It's just to block in the idea of the white shirt, and it's fairly abstract, right? So, but still, you give the base. Give a base for the head of the girl to stand on. Trying to see what happens if we block in some white in here, right? All right. Okay. So, little girl. So let's do now. This ought to work. This ought to work here. This also has tone paper, very light tone paper. So let's see if I have a lighter tone paper. Well, it could go, it could work, right? It's a little bit too dark, right? Clearly it's a little bit too dark, but let's see if I can find another piece of paper that could work better. Still very dark. So this paper is a little bit too light. All right, so let's get the slightly darker paper. This one, right? So to start with the red, I'm gonna use again red, black, and white. Red, black, and white has been used for quite some time, quite a few centuries. It's very. This is another example, red, black, and white, by Watteau, you see how in this case in here they are kept separate. Red, black, and white are kept separate, but in a pure technique for red, black, and white, you would have to add a little bit of black over the red to lower the chroma, like we did for Lady Fortuna here, right? This is another way of doing red, black, and white, and in this case here, we apply some black over the red, right, to create a change in tone, change in value, change in temperature, and mostly change in chroma. All right, let's draw this figure. But we need red, right? We need red. So I'm going to use oil-based pit pastel. So the pit pastel are very good, but you have to be careful, right? Because see, this one here is oil-based, is black. I want to make sure that the other pit pastel that I use are also oil-based, because there is also the non-oil-based pit pastel, which is this one. It simply says pit pastel, and that's it, right? When it says only pit pastel and non-oil base, then you don't want to use them in the same drawing. They don't mix, right? So I have an oil-based black. I want an oil-based red, and that's it. That's it, right? This is oil-based red. So now I'm going to use these two in oil-based and the white. Problem is the white, I was never able to find the oil-based white. So I'm going to use regular white chalk, and because as you can see, they don't really, the white doesn't really mix with red. Meaning, if I had here something like this, right, where the white or the red and the black mix, then I could not use the white that is not oil based. But in this case in here, yes, I can, because the white is really not used to build up volume, interact with other color, etc. So the two will not, the white that is non-oil based will not come in contact with the other color. So I'm going to use it. If you use oil-based color and you're trying to put non-oil based on top of the oil-based color, that color will not stick, because the oil-based reject the other color. So it's like drawing on wax, basically, right? Drawing on wax paper. You cannot do that. Or vice versa. If you draw first with pastel that is a non-oil base, and then you want to draw with oil base on top, the two don't really combine well at all. So a long faint point. Okay, so I might need to keep this off the screen, or I'm gonna move it back and forth, right? See. So, where do we start? Usually I start with the head, right? But the head in this case is partial. I start with the head over the rib cage, but in this case, the drawing, it doesn't have to be so anatomically correct. So we can abstract this work, or have a more abstract approach. And I'm going to use what is more convenient. I'm going to use this arm in here because it's smack in the middle, and it can become a measurement, right? So let's block in this angle here. Just barely, so that we can just barely see it, right? The shoulder, actually, I'm going to move it up a little bit to the right because I want to have space for that. So let's say here, right? Down like this, and you can see also in this case here, it has some lines that look a little bit more fluid, some lines that are kind of a little bit more tentative, and probably they work together. Some probably he first blocking some fluid line, and then refined the fluid line with a little bit more of sculpting technique, almost like when you kind of seem to chisel the line, it creates smaller line coming together. So this comes down like this, and then now we want to see, all right, forearm, right? Forearm comes out like this. I'm looking at this triangle here. See that? This triangle here. Oh, that's a foot. She's holding somebody's foot. No, wait. It's not clear what that is. It looks a foot to me, so it could be the other arm coming down like that, right? Yeah, probably the other arm coming down like that. Seemed weird, right, to have a foot there. So now, this wrist, see that where it is, right here, the level of the shoulder here. And I'm lowering the forearm a little bit to leave more space here. So this space looks okay, more or less, right? But this space, the hand looked too small. So I'm lowering the forearm here. And then the wrist, what is supposed to be the hand now, up. Thumb, and then the finger. As you notice, I'm not measuring the way we do when we draw more accurately the figure, like comparing this with this example, for example, because I want to keep a more freer mode here. I want to work on a freer mode using intuitively my appreciate the proportion intuitively, right? So now the head here from behind. So we have the back here, and then we have the hair here. Coming down like this. Then we have the hair here at the level of this, the peak of the deltoid here, going down like this, creating, I'm trying to frame the face, right? I'm trying to frame this shape here for the face, right? Nose, right? Nose about here. Eyebrows about here. And then eyes, very regular, right? The eyelid is very, the top of the eyelid, see the fold here, the orbit, it's very close to the eyebrow. So here, and the eyelid, upper eyelid here, and then we have the open on the eye. And this spacing here looks a little bit too big, but see the spacing here looks a little bit too big. The nose also looks a little bit too high. So we can, let's move it, right? So now eye here, right? And eyebrow here, so a little bit lower now. So that's the eye. I found the center line of the eye like this, right? Or more or less. So that's the open eye. This is the upper portion of the eyelid here, the upper eyelid. This is the eyebrow. And then the other eyebrow is about here. Nose. Maybe this arm is a little bit lower. We're still marking very faint lines like we did before. If I had found a slightly lighter tone paper, which I don't have, turns out I looked, I don't have it yesterday, this line would be more visible, right? Can make more contrast, but I don't have it, so this will do. But I'm going to darken this line once we are done this phase of first positioning the facial features, right? like that, right? Um, so we can block in now this portion here at the rib cage, and that's probably a skirt. So I'm looking at this, right? And I'm looking at the cuts into the elbow here. So let's see if we have the same, more or less the same proportion here. This comes up, and then this portion here, let's see, this portion here, this fold of the skirt is about here, right? And then down like that. I'm looking at the distance between here and here. I eyeball it to this point. I'm finding now this point in here, which is more or less at the level of top of the nose, and I'm looking if I had the same spacing here, right? So here and here, here. So this is lower, right? This should be lower. All right, so that's the leg, right? Look at this space. Now we can go over this and refine the mark, put more lines, right? First, I wanted to switch gear here and get, with this last session, draw figures that are a little bit more free, right? These 3 drawings of Klimt, a little bit more free, a little bit more sketchy. But after this, I would like to work on the Watteau that I gave you. So we go back to a more deliberate mode, right? Because I think this is just a beautiful drawing, right? And the figure of the body is kind of hidden by the clothing. So that makes it into an extra little challenge. Oh, this is not the colored base, sorry. This one. Here, and we see this chaotic pattern here, right? Of the hair, right? I did it very quickly to fill it up with a volume right here of patterns of curly hair or messy hair. So now here we have the red, black, and white. Red and black. See the eyebrows here are red and black mixed together. Thicker. same thing here, right? So these lines for the hand, right? They are a mixture of red and black. See, a few lines are red here, a few lines are black. So that's quite nice, right? Let's try to copy that. No, the nose idea is a little bit too long, so see if I can move it up a little bit, tiny little bit here, and here closer to this, right here. Actually, probably the eye here. The lip is also higher. A little bit tricky to find the right position, and again on the face, on the side. Of course, also this face is not complete, so even drawing a fragment of it is also difficult. You have fewer reference points, right? But let's say this is fine, right? Kinda, right? So now we can block in a little bit more of details around the arms. Here. This arm also has some red lines, some black lines. Nice mixture, very subtle mixing of lines. Right? The red lines can establish a sense of the idea of a skin tone, and the black line reinforce the form. Yeah, this is the wrist, right? I don't know why I was thinking it was a foot, but now we can block some of those red lines and red, black, and lines a little bit more evidently. Here's a black line like that, right? Oh, these are broken up. Try to replicate those without really copying the line, but understand the patterns, understand how you block in, what kind of marks, what kind of lines you use, right? Very chaotic, right? They've really done well that skirt of chiffon, whatever that was. Few black lines, right, to reinforce the red lines, to carve the form a little bit more, right? It's a very efficient way of rendering the form. With just a minimum of lines. Start with the white now. So we've got some white here. Some white here. I wonder if there's some white in the face here, right? Here. Here. Maybe some white here, right? Overall, this face is a little bit lighter, so maybe I'm gonna put some white here too. And here, right? So also I want to do three quick drawing like this, also to draw as much as possible, because that's very this is a very good exercise to practice drawing, and the more you draw, the more you practice your lines, evaluation of the landmarks, evaluation of the proportion, evaluation of the aesthetic of the form, the overall the overall quality of the drawing, right? So draw as much as you can. Even quick work like this is really a good way to improve, I wouldn't say fast, but improve your work. All right, so let's see now. Let's work on did this. You know what? Why don't we do this one too, right? No, let's do the Vato. If you have time, we do that later. Vato. So Vato use this pink paper, which I couldn't find the same beautiful hue. I have pink paper, but it's too pink. It's too much. So I'm gonna go with this paper here. Let's see. So it's too dark, right? Okay, so sharpening the pencil. Okay, so drawing the head. So we have to abstract the whole drawing a little bit. Just think of, look, this could be like a square or a circle. See that here? This is like a you know, some trapezoid, right? So we have now the shoulders. Look at the space between the head. Once you establish the head, then the head can become really helpful, right? So now here, this is going down this way. This is going down a little bit more that way, right? And I'm just looking at this, right? Not this, this. It's easier, I see. So maybe it could be a little bit deeper than I have, a little bit taller here than I have it. And we can also measure now from here to here and see how the lower portion is, right here. And they're very similar, see that? So that's the midpoint. So that's about the midpoint of the height. So I double that, block it here, and I know that the skirts are gonna arrive down here, and now here I can block in, see, slightly past this line here, right? Come down like this. And then this is going now out like this, right? This part of the gown, and then there's a part of the gown, another gown that comes from the front and widens up the whole width of the figure, like this, right? So the inside of the arm is almost in line with the head. It's like it passed, so it's here. And now we block in this forearm going down like this, right? From here I have a line diagonal that goes down this way, and I can block in this line here, always eyeballing it, eyeballing the space that if I bring this up, I can see how distant this is from the head, right? So that's good enough, an approximation, and we can eventually see if we end up with this kind of triangle. See that here, this kind of triangle here, right? It looks similar, so we'll leave it alone now, right? This width in here seems okay, right? This geometric shape seems similar. See that here and here. So they seem similar, so we'll leave it alone. I can even adjust the line. It's not just like that, but it goes out and straight, out and then straight. So now from here we have a radiating pattern, right? See that this goes this way, here, 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 and here. So included between this line here and this line here, straight, we have this radiating pattern. So we can block in the top, we can block in the one that goes down almost vertical, right, about vertical, down like this, like a curve. And then what we can do, we can block in this one here in the middle, see that, because this looks like it's kind of in the middle between these two, right, and it goes down to this corner here. So from here, right, we go down like that to create the general direction of the big fold here, and then we would have another one in the middle here. See that here, kind of also halfway, right? So we have to look at the big picture here, and this one here now is halfway here, but it's a little bit more curved, right? More curved. So this is curved. This is curved. And this is out, down, like this. And this here is now, we can sculpt the profile where we have this goes down straight here, right? That's good. Inside here we have this long scaling triangle. See that? 1, 2, 3. 1 is end up here, and it's up here. So 1, 2, 3, that create this. And then of course we're going to carve it out a little bit at a time later. Okay, so this would be also red, black, and white, but it's really not much black, just a little bit of a hint in there, right? There is probably some white somewhere here, but it's mostly red. Right? The luminosity of the red that I see in these traditional red, black, and white drawing created by Watteau, by Rubens, by Carracci, somehow I cannot find the same hue of red. It's just difficult to find. So, you know, we do with what we have. And I wonder if those colors are enhanced because of everything you find online is somehow altered or enhanced by some, you know, willingly or not willingly, by the media, by the people that posted it. Sometimes people enhance the colors and change the colors. So, but these reds are so beautiful, and I don't know if there is still this red available. Right? They still make it. So the profile, the face, right? We see here the eye socket just barely, the profile, the orbit here, and then the cheek, and then just below the ear, we see the neck, right? The hair. It's a little notch about here. So the back, we have the top of the gown out here, and then now here we have another division, almost a diagonal. This is a diagonal of this irregular geometric shape. See that from this corner to this corner here, you go down like that, right? So you see when we draw, this is quite complex, right? And you might get lost. So we had to stop a second and start thinking in terms of patterns. We need to recognize the patterns, and then we need to identify the big volumes first. So big volume, we've seen we have the head, the torso, and the lower part of the gown, like that. So comparing them as measurement, not as forms already that mimic, that represent the figure, but just as space, how wide, how high, it puts us in a very good position from the start. The pattern here might be tricky to find because of the incredible amount of visual description, like visual noise, we can also call it. So then we really have to try to find the main, if there is a pattern such as this one here, or the radiating pattern, right? These this method will become more natural, more easy as you proceed. When copying a few of these, you become acquainted with the method. But be careful, don't go after the little line, isolating the little line from the rest. If we take a big forming here, right, and then I notice that is kind of conveniently cut in this big forming here in two, that's pretty good, because now I have, start from a known entity, which is this, right? And then now I have two known entities, 1 and 2, and now I can compare the two. See that? I can compare the two in size and refine the work. Now, within this known entity, I have another line here that creates, see this long strip here and this triangle here. So here, right? See this now triangle, and this shape in here, which is narrower here and wider here, narrower here and wider here, right? So here, this is a little bit more confused, but same thing. See this line here, right? Well, I have a line here, right? So here, and then I have another line here, let's say right here, from this corner, more or less here. And then I have this fold here, and I have another little bump here. Right? So we just try to be as essential as possible in blocking in those forms, because this is the division of the spaces. Then once we're done this kind of mapping of the various folds, etc., then we can stop and look at this in a more realistic way, right? This is all this planning. We need to do this planning first, like planning what are things, right? What are the patterns? How big? How wide? It's really a more conceptual approach. So now I need to put my pencil in a pencil extender and sharpen it a little bit more. Okay, so let's see. Well, you can carve out a little bit more of detail, right? And to show you, I can find. You could also use the generals general sanguine, which is also very good, but it doesn't make because I'm drawing a little bit smaller. This will make bigger lines, wider lines, because it's a little bit softer. So proportionally speaking, it's better for me to use this because it's thinner, makes thinner lines, because I'm drawing on a small work. If we were working on a drawing in a bigger size, then we could use this more easily, because this is also very good, but it's slightly softer than this. So I prefer to work with something that gives me thinner lines. It allows me to work smaller. You'll see how, in this case in here, this probably was used is something similar to this, right? Is a pastel red chalk. See how the grainy part here, the cross hatching, this is kind of grainy. This line a little bit soft, a little bit wider, but again, this work is probably bigger. So now here, so see this line here, cross here, here another one. So now here we have these lines coming down like this right here. Then we can block in the cross hatching here, right? Keep it maybe a little bit flatter, so it makes marks that slightly wider, like those. So start with the sleeve. Then we can go back and add all the details, right? And try to replicate the effect, describe the folds of the gowns, of the silk, more realistically. That same thing, blocking this line here, creating this, right? And then here now we can go with the hatching here. Hatching here. This paper is fairly abrasive, as it dulls the point of my pencil very quickly. I'm gonna keep sharpening it. So this first construction is quite important because it gives you the right measurement, and after that you don't have to worry about keep chasing mistakes in proportion, and you can focus now on just on rendering, right? Of course, there's always something that it might need to be adapted, fixed, etc. You can do that, or decide not to, but usually there's not a lot of difference, right, between the original and your work. So or the model, in case you copy from life, and your work. There's another kind of line here, right? Okay. So here, straight. Probably there's some smudging of color here. So with the blending stamp or with the fingers, you can block it some color, soften it up. Because you see, this color here is slightly darker than the background, and then the lines on top of it are even darker, right? If you turn the pencil as you draw like 4 or 5 marks, and you slightly turn the pencil like that, you have it's a way of maintaining a sharp mark, right? So this I'm going to darken because it looks like it's soft, right? So it's a uniform flat color. It's not obtained with that value is not obtained with lines. It's obtained with an area of value that I can block in like this, or here too. See this here? Carve out the outline of the gun. Maybe I made it a little bit too wide, but that's fine. We can leave it like that. So as you do this, as you refine the drawing, you go over the drawing again with more detail, you will find small mistakes, and you decide if they are problematic, or if it's okay, if it's not a problem. Because sometimes this mistake is so small that we cannot even call it mistake. We can call it slight difference, right? So then you have to decide what to do with that. But in this case here, because it's such a tiny little difference, I wouldn't bother. So now I want to use the stamp, but my stamp is, of course, it's all smeared with charcoal. So I need to clean up the charcoal off the stamp. Only make sure that your stamp is clean when you do this. And because if I were using black, no problem, but I'm using red now. If I use white or red, I need to have the stamp clean, because the black will contaminate the red here. So I'm gonna take off, shaved off the black, the charcoal, and now I have this tip is just for the red, this is for the black, and we have another one for the white, but there's not much white here. So now this is darker here. Come down like this. As for the previous drawings that were the claim drawings, I think that the brightness of the red also is the result of the lighter, because of this paper is lighter and pinker. So, but I'm quite mesmerized by how beautiful this red here. Not to speak of the drawing, I just love this drawing. So this, right? It's long marks, right? Long lines here. There is a highlight here, so we want to be careful to avoid that. There's another highlight here, so I want to do this here, right? So see this line here, the way I obtain it is not by doing this. I might create a thin line to show what it is, but then when I start blocking in the line for the tone rendering, I draw them like this, that very close to each other, and but in a direction that goes across the direction of the fold. Then, if you do this, these lines in here will start showing a turning of the form. See that here? Start showing the fold. See that? So darker line here. This is very dark. Push it dark. There's another beautiful fold here, right? Here, coming down like this from here, right? Where's this? This, and then this fold here goes out. Okay, so we need to mark this. See that? See this line here? Let's mark this too, because we need to have a direction of this fold, and then we can create now lines that do this. See, turning here, right? Like that, right? This is another depression, darker area. See how the fold kind of materialize quickly if you use the right mark, the right line, right? This probably we could block in also a general area of value, which would help to identify the light, the dark, light and dark, etc. All this portion. We could do the same thing. We could block in overall in all this area here, except for that, right? See, this is the area I want to leave white. The various areas of darker value for the folds. And this one too, probably this one too is also very dark. So let's get let's put a value here to darken the overall area, but not down here. See that down here I have a lighter background, so I'm gonna leave it light here, and then down here we have all these marks for the turning of the gown. You almost can hear the crinkling noise of this gown moving, right? The rendering of the texture consistency of the silk is so convincing in this drawing that you really can start thinking all this movement or the reflection, right? Right, so here these lines go down at an angle like this. They are very packed here and dark, and then as they go down they become a little bit more distanced from each other. This part here is very dark here, and then this is now the margin of this is very dark. See that, and then it gets lighter. The silk here, the gown gets lighter, and we go back to a dark section. Here, down, here, I need to sharpen the point. Watteau was very good with this rendering of the silk, rendering of the clothes. He did so many of these beautiful drawings of gowns and costumes. It was so good. I think this should be taught in art school. Students had to copy, and especially fashion designers should copy these works. There's a lot to learn from these works. Not that you know you have to use this method to do modern fashion design. You won't, but it teaches you a lot about the consistency of the silk and the elegance of the pose, etc. So, all right, so see how kind of develop, right, kind of materializes little by little. Oh, this is fairly dark, right? Push dark. This is darker here. I also like to vary the way I keep the pencil from this, right? Which is pretty straight, perpendicular, makes very sharp, precise marks, to this, which is slightly more at an angle, right? Slightly more at an angle, like that, and then this, which is even more at an angle. So basically, I would go, imagine this is the paper, right? I would go from this to this to this, different way of holding a pencil, different marks. But it's important that you always have the long pencil like that. So when it gets short, don't work with the stump. Put a pencil extender. Put your pencil into a pencil extender, right? Okay. Oh, these thin lines are just beautiful. The thin lines that this gown has. um, this is darker right here. This needs to be darker, so we can push it darker. It's also redder, but again, the darker value of the paper does not let me create that bright red orange, and not the red orange, like a beautifully balanced red. So as you know, red and green are complementary, so this green paper, which I love, it's beautiful paper, but in this case in here, is subdued a little bit red, which in some cases might be good, right? But some cases, you know, you subdue it too much. Here, like this, right? So here I have this nice set of lines that stop and leaving a little bit of a light area here. So from here, go down like this here. First I can block in this line, not necessarily so dark, just to locate them, right? And leave some white margin here and here, right? Then we go back and we push hard the end of the lines to create this extra sharp fold and darker value. but you see how, for me at least, I want always to block in the whole figure, even just a few lines. Blocking some extra information after blocking the main volume, then we can start with the tonal rendering. If you start drawing a detail here without having any idea what's going to happen next, you don't know if the line that starts from here, you don't know where it's going to go, right? So blocking, have control over the whole figure first, and then subdivide the main volume in a few other dominant volumes, and then you can start with the detail work, right? Is that sometimes we are impatient. We want to just draw a fine detail right away, and you know. So now I have a pattern here, shadow. So later when I draw this, I think you're on the plane now, or at the airport, so you're gonna watch this later on, right? We can discuss about this in Rome if you want, and have fun. I'll catch up with you guys soon, a couple of days. I'm on the plane myself, so we'll see you. I'll see you there, right? But we could also use this technique for our live drawing section with the model, the session we will have there in Rome. We could use this technique for the live drawings, and because it's a very efficient technique. Even if we will not be drawing gowns, etc., but still the way you render, you approach drawing the figure, right, is pretty much the same. Dominant proportion, dominant volumes, and then gradually add the detail. So here, this will be an intermediate passage, right? So before I get into the detail of the tone rendering, I want to identify now, further subdivide the form in smaller and smaller parts. And this is one, see that here, this is the other one here, right? And here I have now another line here like this, which I'm going to block in with a layer of chalk here that I blocked, and this is now another area here. So I'm starting to break down in smaller and smaller parts the subject. See that here? So I know how to guide my marks when I draw this, right? So this will need to be darker. So I'm gonna push this darker with the value here. Push it back, right? Push it back compared to that. So this comes forward, that moves back. All this needs to be darker, right? There's some reflection going on in here, so kind of extend the tonal scale, carve it darker. This could be probably darker, so I'm going to darken this with the value, blocking a flat value, and then stamp it, and then darker. Look how dark this is here, right? Getting there, right? See, these lines are also very interesting. Here like this, right? So we have this line coming down like this, kind of going some this way, some this way. I don't like that cross hatching, it's too flat. So I'm gonna take this out like that, and then have a few lines here like this, right? You know, very often when the artists were copying clothes figure like this, if it was a long pose, they would use a mannequin, and then maybe they have a quick pose with a model for the blocking in the head, or even the model without you know, separate place, and just add the head to the whole thing. But you can imagine how some poses could be difficult to hold for a long time. For example, these poses here, right? Holding a pose like that. I mean, it can be done, but it will be kind of tiring, right? So probably having a mannequin with a gown on it, especially if you have to do a long session of oil painting for a portrait. They were definitely, for the portrait, they were definitely using mannequins. I want to try one thing to see if I can increase, when I'm done this with the drawing now, like I want to try to add some of this color here, which is a slightly darker and slightly softer pastel. Maybe I can increase some contrast in a few areas. It's really not an orthodox technique, but it's a technique, and we can do mixed technique, right? Simply because the contrast I obtain with this value of the pencil I have and the paper is not sufficient, right? Probably if I were drawing on a lighter paper, see the contrast so much more clear, right, visible, but we start from the darker value, so that decreases the contrast. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so now here, I want to try to see if I can darken this. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if it's worth it, but we'll try it. So I was saying before, this is oil-based that I blocked in. This is not oil-based, so you can see the two don't really like each other, right? I am afraid we have to leave it like this then, because so I want to, yeah, this is not sticking, right? A little bit, I gotta push hard. So now I'm blocking some of the black in the hair, and I don't think there is any black anywhere else in the figure here. Just here, the hair, the little here, that's it, just to bring out the accent of the back of the head and this bow here that's tied behind the neck. All right, so let's see. Black, right? It's oil base, so it should work. Yeah, so see what we could do. If you really want to bring out the contrast, we could keep working with the black. Going over here now, this is not what you see in the original, but just to show you how we could increase the sense of shadow. See that here? I put black over here, very thin layer, right? Very thin layer of black, uniform. So you wanted a layer of black that is like this, uniform. Don't do this for now, right? So just flat, it's like a wash. So now this could be, let's say, this could be darker. So we're gonna block in a dark value here. Yeah, decrease the contrast a little bit, but not really much, right? So the other thing we could do is start blocking some white in it. See what happens, right? Although again, there's no white in the original, but we can play with it. Just be creative a bit and interpret the work. In other drawing like this, Watteau used much more white and much more black than he did here, right? But this one is very limited to the red, pretty much overall, and that's fine. It's just a beautiful drawing, and we can play with it, adding some highlights here and there to accentuate the contrast and elevate and move the fold, right, spatially more, in this case, toward us, and those indirectly away from us, right? Right, see how that little touches of white can really make a difference. And I do wonder if he, I don't see it in my copy. I kind of add the vivacity to the whole scene, add contrast, the shine. Okay, all right. So I think we have time to do one more. I would like to do it. So let's go back to that lady, the drawing that the woman I didn't like, and we'll see, right? See how it goes. So kept it for last, right? So this one here. Well, we can use tone paper for this one too. Okay, quite a lot of drawing today, which is good, right? We need to practice as much as possible, but knowing what we are doing, right? Every time you make a mark, justify it. That will lead you to become aware of the mark, of why you're doing that without really thinking, overthinking. Then will become eventually a more instinctual gesture, right? And a more instinctual drawing. But in the beginning, you want to justify, why am I putting this mark in here and there, right? All right, so this is a nice, nice pretty face with a nice little angle here like this. See that here and here, right? And then we have this volume above here, right? About here like this. The size of the hair will probably, I mean, it's an approximation, because clearly we can add easily hair volumes here as we proceed. So we have now the face here like this. We have the zygomatic, right? That's the chin. The mouth is about down here. The nose is still about here. The eyes are a little bit higher than zygomatic, so here and here, right? So we just mark the coordinates of this. We don't want to be too precise in mimicking the organic detail, the physiognomic of the face. We just want to see where are they, right? So the eye, this eye is here, right? And this eye is here. Now I look at the nose. Now I start looking at if these are spaced properly, right? So let's see. This is the eyebrow, and that's fine. This is the upper eyelid. That's the lower eyelid. Maybe it should be closer to the nose here, right? A little close to the nose. See the wing of the nose to bring it up right here. That is slightly to the right of that. That looks okay. This eyebrow here is almost tangent to the upper margin of the eyelid right here. And now we have nose, the tip of the nose come down a little bit more, going closer to the lips. The space between the tip of the nose and the lips, let me check. Probably this could be a little bit longer. The nose could be a little bit longer. So I'm going to move the nose down a little bit. Now the lip is here, that's fine. And now I have this nice smile here. Actually, it's a very nice drawing. Probably the photocopy came out bad, and here. And I'm looking at the chin. Now we can add a little bit spacey between here and the chin. I could add slightly more elongated and pointier chin. And now the hair from here, I have this curly. I don't want to do the wiggle and jiggle. Now I just want to block in this and maybe this, right? Maybe this, right? So this goes up to here. The space going very close to the actually tangent or touching the eyebrow. From here I have this corner up, out. See, I'm looking at the space between here and here, and from here up like that, right? So here I wouldn't know what to call it, shawl maybe. It looks like a shawl, maybe part of the dress, I don't know. A nice little jewel probably there. And this is shorter. See this kind of, almost like a hand. Actually, it is the hand. It is the hand. All right. I see now it's a hand. So this is the forearm, right? And that's the hand. Okay. I missed that. Yeah, I guess the photocopy is kind of crummy. So, but that's the hand. Like she's holding her chin up, right? And that's the hand here. That's the sleeve, and that's the forearm. That was funny. It looks like a hand. Oh, it is a hand. Okay, so also very quick, right? So this is here works at the measuring seems. Oh God, I don't want to measure. It's gonna take me forever. It's 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes, and you have a very good base, a very good scaffolding for eventually developing this further. Oh, this is the other arm, right? Okay, that's the other arm. I see it now here. It is, and that's, I guess, the legs here, right? So now, let's give it a little bit more movement, right, to the whole thing, a little bit more detail. Probably the original was charcoal. You can tell the graininess of the markers was probably charcoal, unlike the previous ones. Like this one was clearly a pencil, right? So clean and clean and sharp. This is somehow more rough, right? Still beautiful. I mean, I take back what I said before. I didn't like it. This is really beautiful work. There's nothing like drawing, copying a work to really appreciate it, because sometimes works don't shout out loud, and they are quiet, and but they're nonetheless beautiful. So by spending some time with them, you get to know them, and they say, oh wow. See some red. Oops. Also, the sharpening of the pencil will make the marks darker somehow, because you can carve out more in the paper, get down deeper, and somehow it becomes more visible right here. Oh, Carol, for when you watch um, the video, right? I know you cannot be here today. I noticed that. So you posted quite some nice drawings, right? And they look very good. They look nice. The Watteau, they look very lovely. You got them right. The clean mark, clean drawings. This drawing here, and might want to look at that. This drawing here, in your drawing, the legs are a little bit too short. So check the legs in that, and you don't have to fix it. I mean, it would take too much, but the legs are too short. Always remember to compare compare the, for example, in here it's easy. Compare this upper half with this lower half in here. Just you have the cloth in here. You can take this and then compare with that and see how the two relate, right? So the leg in that drawing are a little bit short, but the red, black, and white is rendered. The technique is rendered well. Overall, as a really way you use the red, black, and white, the mark, etc. Those are nice. It's just the proportion in that figure that look a little bit off. The legs are too short. But the other drawing, the Watteau, is really lovely. Came out nice. You use the red, black, and white very well in those. And I have to say that your drawing technique is quite improving, quite fast. So I'm really, especially because the red, black, and white is difficult technique, right? And that you got, and you have an affinity with that. So that was nice. And then I had to tell you about eventually when we meet again in another class, the picture that you showed of the guy that is being robbed of his lunch by a wild boar. That happened to me too. So I have a story about that, so what I'm gonna tell you in class, and it was very similar to that situation. It was in Corsica. It was kind of a strange thing that happened. All right, so now so you see what I'm saying. It doesn't really take long. You just take your time to measure, and you could crank out many of these works, right, in a day, and but just without the frustration of having go back to measure, remeasure as you draw, because the beginning was not good. Meaning, you just make sure you have the right proportion. Just spending a little bit of time looking how big is this relation to that, right? And everybody else to everybody else. Create a scaffolding. And then now you can, over the scaffolding, really draw more freely, right? The facial feature, etc., without worrying too much that the head is too big or the leg is too short, right? I think there are a few drawings in Canvas that I posted for this course in the various weeks that we were not able to copy. I usually give you more work than we're going to need so that you can have some references. And also, if you want to copy some on your own, you could do that. So there's quite a few in Canvas that if you want, you can copy, right? And okay.